Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to Money in the Morning, aka Economic Elevation, aka Financial Consciousness. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and I hope everybody's feeling good today. I hope that your day is going well. I got up today. I was not in the 5 a.m. club. I was in the 6:30 a.m. club. Don't judge me. And My wife, now to tell you how much of a badass my wife is, she was actually up at 5 a.m. and she went to boot camp. And so shout out to the black women that are working hard to stay in shape and everything. Same thing is true with men. You know, if you don't get in that gym, life will catch up with you. And remember, don't forget the health as well. That's really important as well. That's an investment too. That's a bigger investment than your finances. So never think that your finances are more valuable than your health, because if you fall into that trap, then you could very likely end up like the millions of people who lose all their wealth trying to get their health back, right? You know, a big pharma will take your money faster than a thief in the night. Tell me if I'm lying or telling the truth. Those $100,000 surgeries and that super expensive medication and just all these things that they drop onto you in terms of the cost of a nursing home, you know, before you're ready, and all these things. I mean, these things all really are connected, right? And what's really unfortunate is you've seen a lot of examples of people that'll work really hard their whole life. They'll work 30 or 40 years, and they might actually save something, you know, build a little bit of wealth. And all that just evaporates immediately when somebody gets sick, right? It can just disappear fast. It doesn't have to be that way, but this is one of the reasons why we talk about things like wealth protection, like protecting what you have so you don't end up, you know, sort of being stuck in that ugly trap. It can happen to really anybody, it's smart people, rich people, poor people. So don't let that happen to you. Okay. All right. So anyway, I want to start off actually by talking about something that really got my attention. And it was kind of a tragic story. It kind of, I had to do a double take this morning on it. And it had to do with this brother who was a former lieutenant governor in I believe it was Virginia, and he took his wife's life, and then he took his own life. Did y'all see that? Let me see. I'm gonna look it up. Yeah, it was really crazy. It was in Virginia. He was a former lieutenant governor. What's his name here? His name was hold on, give me a second. K- Wait, where's it? Give me his name. Why are they not giving me his name? Is it Justin Fairfax? Yeah, Justin Fairfax. And I mean, this is just wild. And I wanted to talk about it because, believe it or not, this is I mean, this is one of many, many situations I've seen where you've had a couple that appear to be doing well on the outside and things sort of ended badly. And everybody's like, what the hell just happened? And I'll just give you the quick overview. It says here that he took his wife's life and he shot himself inside their home early Thursday. He was 47 years old. His wife was a dentist. They were very wealthy. They both met at Duke University, and he'd been under a little bit of pressure, I think, because of some accusations of sexual assault, things like that, which kind of I think derailed his political career a little bit. He ran for governor, and so this tragedy is obviously very, very sad. But it really, I don't know, the spirit told me to bring this to class. I was actually going to talk about something different, but I wanted to bring it to class. And the reason I wanted to is because if you remember years ago, I wrote a book called Financial Lovemaking back when I was on the faculty at Syracuse. And you guys can have this book for free. The website is boyceandalicia.com. If you go to boyceandalicia.com, you can have the copy for free. And I remember being utterly fascinated with um, how wealth changed how people view the world, but how your choices, your personal choices, can affect your wealth, right? They can affect your economic outcomes. And so one of the things that I thought I would kind of dig into a little bit so that you could kind of understand why this story saddens and fascinates me is that there's sometimes what shall we say, is he white? I don't think he's white, actually. I think he's a brother, actually. Yeah, I think he's black. Now, his wife, I think she's black too. But I can't really, you know, black people, we come in all shapes, sizes, and complexions. So his wife, I'm gonna put her picture up, and y'all can think. I think she's black. My wife, she's light skinned like my wife. I got a light skinned wife, light skinned did it. So let me show you. I'll just show you the picture so y'all can chat amongst yourselves about her ethnicity. I'm seeing black. I'm seeing black. But, maybe she's, like, I got Indian in my family, that type of thing. I don't know. But I'm not making light of it. Obviously, she's a victim of a horrible tragedy. So, in my view, it doesn't matter what her race is. But I thought I would just kind of mention that. But here's the thing. So, with this situation, it really takes me to believe it or not, there are financial theories out there that explain that the biggest part of your portfolio is actually who you choose to marry. That you think your biggest part of your investing portfolio is the stock you bought, the real estate you bought, right? The job, that little job you got. And I say little job because unfortunately jobs don't build wealth. Not because I don't respect what you do. I say this to you because I respect what you do so much and I respect who you are. Jobs don't build wealth. Jobs build wealth for the boss. Jobs build wealth for the employer. They don't build wealth for the employee. All the data shows this. And but anyway, there are theories out there that literally say the biggest investment you'll ever make is who you choose as your partner. And what's crazy about that, and this explains why wealth is splattered everywhere, why most Americans don't have any wealth, is because as a culture, we do not teach ourselves and our children about the fact that you must do careful due diligence when you choose who you're going to invest in. Now, I'm not judging this woman or this man and their choices. I have to judge the man a little bit because, you get to the point where you have a bad relationship. You can't end it like that. I'm suspecting that there was a mental health thing going on. And that's what I hate about it, right? That there's other solutions other than somebody getting their life taken. But still, I can tell you the marriage, when people ask me all the time, they say, is marriage good or is marriage bad? I say it's both. It's everything. Marriage is powerful. It's powerful. It's like integration. Is integration good or bad? Integration could be great if it's a partnership that works. But it can be horrible if it's not. Or is business good or bad? Well, yeah, it's both. If I start a business and it's a great business, then they can make me a billionaire. But if I run it wrong, don't do my due diligence, don't have the right partners, then it could end up being my worst nightmare. Do you understand what I'm saying? That most areas of finance are a dichotomy of possibilities. Just so many possibilities. It can be the thing that literally takes you to the next level, makes your life the greatest that it could ever be, or it can be the thing that makes you regret the day you were born. Do you understand? Let me know if you get that. Give me a yes if you're following this, right? So marriage, in my view, if you look at this, and there's a guy named Becker, a really famous economist, Nobel Prize winner named Becker from the University of Chicago. Remember, I told you that Chicago, when I was getting my PhD, Chicago was kind of the Vatican of finance. University of Chicago is well regarded in a lot of areas, and he was one of the kings of Chicago. And actually, I emailed him once because I had a dispute with a Stanford professor over something, and he emailed me back actually and told me that I was right and the guy was wrong. But I didn't know at that time when you a 28-year-old PhD student, you don't correct a 50-year-old Stanford professor. So I learned that the hard, or maybe he was 40, I don't know, but he was a hot shot from Stanford, and he did some research, he brought some research in, and it was like it was wrong, it was flawed. I was like, no, this is wrong, and they were like, you can't tell him he's wrong. I'm like, well, I'm gonna tell him he's wrong if he's wrong. But that's me. That was the young voice. I didn't know when to keep my mouth shut. But then again, the old voice doesn't know that either. So maybe we just need to keep working on that. Just keep praying for me. But anyway, so I emailed this guy Becker, and he actually told me I was right. And I was like, yeah, of course I was. I mean, this was it's not difficult to understand, but I didn't understand life and the fact that sometimes you need to be quiet. But anyway, with Becker, he has another theory, and this respected economist had a theory called Becker's economic theory of marriage. And what he did in this work, which is very good, is he framed your partner selection as a lifetime investment. That he said, this is no different. This is probably more impactful than any financial investment you'll ever make. Do you understand? This is choosing your partner is more valuable than any job you'll take, any stock you'll buy, any home you'll ever own, any business that you'll ever start. So the idea of marriage as a financial contract, it is a legal contract. I don't know if people understand that. And why does this concern me? Well, because it can lead to catastrophic consequences. Now, in this case, it was the ultimate catastrophe. I mean, someone losing their life and taking their spouse's life. I mean, just horrible, unacceptable, highly unfortunate. But this is not the only time I've seen this. Right here in this class, Robin Simpson out of Houston. I guess nobody cares when black people get killed if they get killed by another black person. If she'd been killed by a white police officer, everybody would have been on it. Ben Crump would have filed lawsuits and everything else. But for whatever reason, because she was killed by a black man, it didn't get the attention it deserved, and it really baffled me. I'm like, does no one care about what happens to individuals in these marriages? And it's usually the woman that gets killed. I hate to say that, but a lot of times it's their partner is the one that's most likely to do this. And Robin Simpson in this class, her husband, Robin Simpson was a high-flying woman. She was a leader in Delta Sigma Theta. I hope the Deltas all know about her because they should. And she was a highly successful woman, highly educated, doing amazing things in her work and respected in the community. And her husband, for whatever reason, he decided that he wanted to stab her over 100 times right in front of their 8-year-old daughter. Their 8-year-old daughter, her name is Essence. She moved with relatives in Philadelphia. And every other day she has these nightmares and she's asking simple questions like, is my daddy gonna come kill me when he gets out of jail? Things like that. This is a reality, right? This is a little black girl's reality after watching her father stab her mother over 100 times. And I'll be damned. And I'm sorry, forgive me, but it angers me that as a community we aren't outraged about this. Like we could talk all day about something that CNN puts on TV, but we don't have enough initiative to become outraged over things we really should be outraged about. We wait for permission from other people to tell us, well, no, 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 you should be mad about this. Well, no, I'm mad about that. I'm mad about that woman losing her life. And so this is a passionate issue for me because I've seen this happen many, many times. And so really what I would say is if you want to hear me, then now that's Uncle Boyce talking. Uncle Boyce, sometimes he jumps in the conversation. Let me bring Dr. Boyce back in the room. Dr. Boyce, the finance guy, says that when you're talking about investing in something as valuable as a human being, you must do your due diligence. Before you invest, you must investigate. It's too many people run around and they say, "Oh, she's cute and she got a nice booty, so I'm gonna make her my wife." That ain't enough. Oh, he's tall, he's handsome, he's gonna be a governor one day, he's gonna be rich. I want him as a husband. That's a good catch. How the hell you know he's a good catch? You don't know that. You don't know that. You're looking at the surface and the material stuff, and you haven't even looked at the demon that might lie beneath all that money. Diddy pulled in lots of influence from influential people, from famous people, powerful people, because they wanted to get closer to the gold and the power and the wealth and everything else without knowing about the devil that was in the details. Jeffrey Epstein, that's how Epstein got all of his victims. Everybody wants to hang out with the rich guy. Everybody thinks that being friends with the billionaire is always a good thing. But sometimes it ain't. Sometimes it ain't. So if you ever want to, if you want to know the most significant form of investing advice that I will ever give you, if you are a young person who's not married or something, and you want to know the most valuable piece of investing advice I'll ever give you, it's take your time and investigate before you choose who you let into your life. Because if you do that wrong, it can ruin everything. You marry somebody who kills you or takes everything you've got or destroys your reputation or whatever it is, it won't matter how many degrees you have. It won't matter how many stocks you own. It won't matter how much real estate you purchase. It won't matter what you put into your 401k. They will obliterate you. And I'm talking to the women and the men. Now, the women, yeah, the women are more likely to be the victims of physical violence, but I've seen some men get ripped so bad that literally they leave that relationship with their soul literally yanked out of their body. Tell me if you've ever seen, have you ever seen what happens to a man when he's had his family taken away from him? When like literally when he can't live with his children no more. He done lost his children. He done lost his wealth. I mean, it's like a soulless body. It reminds me of that movie Soul, where you just have these dead souls just out here, like you just a lot of your sense of purpose has been yanked away from you. Chris Rock and what's his name? Adam Sandler did a movie about that 20 years ago where it was basically about a guy who lost his family in 9/11 and he was a dentist and very successful and Chris had gone to dental school with him and he saw the guy 20 years later and the guy literally was like he was so shell shocked and so traumatized by his loss They all he did was sit at home and play video games all day or go to the movies, 3 or 4 times in a row. Was it Don Cheadle? I thought it was Chris Rock. Maybe it's Don Cheadle. Thank you for Tiffany for correcting me. See, Tiffany's smart. She remembers stuff. I don't. I'd be forgetting stuff. But anyway, but yeah, so it was Don Cheadle and Adam Sandler. So let me get that right. And it was a great movie, and it was like literally what can happen, when you have that kind of a traumatic experience where you're literally something has just literally ripped the soul out of your body. And so, long story short, um, those relationships, that's a big investment, and I see a lot of people that don't take their time to investigate before they make their decision. So anyway, let me read more about Becker's economic theory of marriage, and he talks about partner selection as a lifetime investment. So Gary Becker's model treats choosing a spouse like selecting the largest asset in your personal portfolio. Right? Marriage creates gains through complementarity. When one partner's skills adds to the other's partner's skills, and also specialization, division of labor. What does that mean? That means 2 plus 2 is not 4. 2 plus 2 becomes 6 because we have what are called synergies. This is what corporations look for when they decide to merge. They look for synergies. Can we cut costs? Can we find other opportunities? Can my skills complement your deficiencies, right? And then next thing you know, you become more powerful because you come together in a complementary way. Now, if you come together in a way that conflicts, 2 plus 2 does not become 6 or 7 or even 4. 2 plus 2 can become 2 minus 2. We're in conflict. So now 2 minus 2 becomes 0, or 2 minus 4 becomes -2. So ultimately, when you're talking about figuring out ways to determine if a merger is good for you. This is coming from portfolio theory. This is how corporations decide how they want to merge. There's thousands of research papers written on this. What they're looking for is complementarity. So the same thing is true in marriage, which is the ultimate business merger for your life. That is the merger that's going to matter. You look for something as someone that complements you, and also the specialization. The specialization, whether you are a modern couple where you divide the labor in the house, or you are a traditional couple where there was nothing wrong with the trad wife and the trad husband, as long as y'all on the same trajectory, right? As long as you're on the same trajectory, you can be trad. Trad is short for traditional, right? So basically, you have the wife at home, and she says, I'm gonna give you some kids. I'm gonna raise the kids, and I'm gonna cook and clean, right? Nothing embarrassing about that, right? And then the husband says, okay, babe, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna work hard and I'm gonna conquer things and bring home the bacon. I'm gonna bring home $200,000 a year so that you can have plenty of resources to get the job done. Well, that creates specialization. Now, again, I'm not here to judge what the rules should be for a relationship. I just think that you should probably have some communication so you know what the rules are going to be at all, right? So you just kind of know, like, okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to school and you're gonna go to work, right? And then you're gonna go to school and I'm gonna go to work, right? Having those conversations is really important. And actually, my wife, Dr. Alicia Watkins, she's good at that stuff. If you want to talk to her about that. She's actually going to do a retreat that's going to kind of focus on like a lot of healing and these sorts of things, and that's happening in the winter solstice. And if you want to go, her website is escapewithdralicia.com. That's escapewithdralicia.com. So if you want to take a look at her retreat in Costa Rica, I'm going to go because synergy, complementarity, right? I work for her when I go, do her stuff. She's the boss. I'm the little worker, so I might be sweeping the floor or something. But anyway, escapewithdralicia.com. So feel free to participate if you want to go there. All right, so let me read more to you. So what Becker also says is that poor partner selection therefore becomes a catastrophic capital loss. Do you know what that means? Tell me if you know what that means when I say catastrophic capital loss. How many of y'all instantaneously knew what I'm talking about? Catastrophic capital loss. You get that? Does that make sense? Like you basically you done lost all your shit. Like that's like it's like a shit show. Like oh my God, all the world's falling apart. So he says, so you either get heaven or you get hell. But you gonna get one of them, depending on whether or not you made the right decision. That's why in fact they have a whole financial theory called moral hazard. And what moral hazard means is that basically one way to interpret moral hazard, how about this, is to realize like when you haven't made your choice yet, you have lots of options. You can choose any person. You go out to a nightclub and you're a young woman, you're pretty. There's a bunch of guys you could pick. You're a handsome man and you got a little bit of money, whatever. You got a lot of different women to pick. So you have a lot of freedom, a lot of power at that point. Once you pick, you've kind of collapsed You've gone from a quantum reality where you can imagine all these different possibilities to a collapse of reality where you've chosen one person and that's your situation. And what moral hazard says is that once you let go of your options, once you trade your options in and say, you're my person, you've given a lot of power to that person. You've chosen a reality. You know, you can no longer say, "Well, I wonder what would happen if I married him or married him or married him." It's like, no, you married him. That's your husband now, right? So moral hazard says that the regrets that you can have if you give that power to the wrong person, that is actually reduced by something they call optimal contracting. And one aspect of it basically kind of says if you take your time, think it through, make a plan, and then make an agreement on how things are going to go. Okay, so if I give you this power, it's going to be like this and like this and like this. And then you have to check the credibility because some people will lie. Some people are like, yeah, baby, I'm gonna treat you real well. I'm gonna do the right. Or women, you know, I've heard guys talk about women changing their behavior once they kind of know that they have you, right? So you kind of have to sort of figure out a way to finagle that and figure that out because in the beginning you have this much power, but after you make a choice, your power shrinks. And in fact, one of the things I talk about with young people a lot is that your life is full of options. I talk about stock options, and in fact, just FYI, we're having stock options class on Friday. So if you want to get started with stock options, just go to drboyceprime.com. Feel free to go to that site if you want to join us Friday. But it's not just stock options; it's just options in general. Everybody knows what it means to have options. So when you're young, you have a lot of options in your life. And as you get older, your options slowly tick away. There's something in option theory called time decay. And what time decay basically means is that as time goes by, your options start to drop. So the options you have at 18 aren't the same as the options you have at 48. Do you understand? Does that make sense? Right? So when you are young, you have a form of wealth. That is the optionality, the freedom of your life, the freedom to choose what you want to do. So Becker's theory basically says that when you choose a partner, which is the largest asset in your portfolio, it will either be something where there's complementarities and specialization, which can allow you to accelerate all of your possibilities in terms of health, wealth, relationships, all the things that matter, not just money. But also, poor partner selection can become a catastrophic capital loss, legal fees, asset division, lost future earnings destroyed. Has anybody ever seen how unproductive a person is when their mental health has been destroyed by a bad relationship? Tell me if you've ever gone through it or you've ever seen somebody go through it. Like where literally you have a friend. Anybody ever like you have a friend where you like, girl, I ain't talked to you in 2 years, and they come back and they have like this whole horror story to tell you about all these horrible things that were happening that nobody knew about, right? Or you know, or man, he's just drained mentally and physically, and he can't produce because he doesn't have a woman that energizes him. She kind of drains him and stresses him out, right? So a lot of these things. So what he's basically saying is that investment that you make, that choice to entangle yourself with a given situation or a given person can have massive impacts on your ability to perform and show up in the other areas of your life. And it really can disrupt your mental health. In fact, there's another theory that I saw. Let me see it. Oh, yeah, there's another theory where they actually talk about divorce as the ultimate risk event. They framed divorce. This is crazy. I thought this was an awesome way to describe it. They described divorce as a forced margin call on your entire life portfolio. I said, oh my God, I love this. So what's a margin call? Here's what a margin call is. Basically, a margin call is where, let's say you borrow money from a bank and you go buy a building or you buy stock. And well, banks are concerned about the collateral. You use collateral. You say, I got this building. Your building's collateral, or even a car or something like that. Well, what happens is that if the value of your collateral drops too much, then the bank will do what is called a margin call. They'll come in and say, no, pay us back. We want our money back because our collateral's in danger. Like that's what's happened with companies like Uncle Nearest, right? Uncle Nearest, the whiskey brand. The bank took over the company. They call it receivership. They took over the company because they were concerned that their collateral was dropping. So it was a little bit like a margin call, not quite the same thing, but very similar in nature in the sense that they're cutting their losses. Thank you, Miss P. That's exactly what they're doing. So what they're saying here is that when you go through a divorce, it's like a forced margin call because in a margin call, the worst thing about a margin call, and this is why liquidity is so important when you invest. And we can talk more about this later. I got to take our youngest to class to school today, so I'm actually going to bounce out a little bit early. When Tater needs to go to school, I'm gonna be there for it. That's my little girl. But anyway, but the thing about it is that when you go through that divorce, what it does is it can cause you to have to suddenly liquidate things, right? Like you suddenly now it's like, okay, now that we're no longer together, we got to split the house, we got to split the car, we got to decide who's going to get what, split the kids, right? And suddenly what that requires you to do then is it requires you to liquidate assets and sell things you may not want to sell. So you may say, for example, I own half the house, you own half the house. Well, give me my half. You can keep the house, but I want my half. Well, if you don't have the cash or you can't raise the cash to give them their money, then you have to sell the property, right? So a lot of times, the reason that you want to in your portfolio have some cash available is because if you're using margin, which is basically a loan to build up your portfolio, and the asset values drop too much, then you will get a margin call, which means that they'll say either you put up more cash or you must sell your asset. You must sell. And this is a big part of asset protection. The protecting the asset, keeping yourself liquid and prepared for a downturn is critical because what happens is this is how rich people get rich, by the way. This is how guys like Warren Buffett become very wealthy, is when the downturn happens, the downturn you didn't prepare for occurs and people have to sell things for pennies on the dollar, then suddenly the people that have cash become powerful. That's where that term "cash is king" becomes relevant because if I'm sitting on a bunch of cash and you need money and you say, well, this thing's really worth $100,000, I might say, well, I'll give you 50 for it, and you say, well, no, it's worth 100. I say, okay, no problem. Well, then you go find someone to give you more than 50, and then you come crawling back. Oh, okay, I'll sell it for 50, right? When really what happened is that you were put into a vulnerable position because something happened that you did not prepare for because asset protection is not necessarily a top priority for those who are, say, doing well. So let me wrap this up so we can sort of understand the connection here. Do we agree that your marriage and your family is an asset? Have we talked about that? Right? Do we agree on that? In fact, when people talk about the cost of raising children, I correct them. I say, no, a child is not an expense. A child is an investment. A family is an investment. Your spouse is an investment. That job is not an investment. It's an investment for the company, but it's not an investment for you. In the job, you are the investment. They're investing in you, and they're gonna get their ROI, not you. So if we agree that family is an investment, then let me ask you another question, another simple question. Do you agree that assets must be protected, that investments must be protected, that maintaining control and protection of the asset is a high priority? Okay, if we agree on those two things, then you must agree with me that if you invest in something as sacred as a family, then you must spend time gaining the skill and the will to protect that asset. That means if I become a father, I go study and learn how to be a better dad. I love, I love my kids. I love Alicia's kids. They're her kids are my kids. I said, okay, if I'm gonna be a dad, I got to go learn how to be a dad. I need to go study this, right? I said, okay, gosh, I'm about to be a husband. I got to go study how to be a husband. I had to learn a new skill set because when me and my wife work well together, we do amazing things. And then when frictions come up, you got to know how to handle that. You got to know things like dispute resolution, how to deal with situations where maybe you're a little mad, your feelings are hurt or whatever, right? You must treat everything that matters to you like it is an asset. People do not do that. They don't do that. Will Smith used to say that the reason he got a divorce years ago was because he treated his career like an asset, but he didn't treat his family like an asset. He looked at his family as he looked at his family as sort of a sideshow, as something that he would do after he got finished working and all that. And he found that he never had any time for family. So therefore, his family fell apart because assets that you don't invest in don't tend to grow. They don't tend to stay strong. They tend to get weak. They break down. They fall apart. So investments of time and energy and attention are really important for the things that matter for you. So I can't tell you what matters for you, but I can say that whatever matters for you, if it matters for you, you shouldn't say that it matters to you. Your actions have to reflect that because your actions are an investment. You make investments every day. By being in class right now, you are investing in something. Maybe you're investing in your knowledge. Maybe you're investing to prepare to buy that business. Maybe you're investing to try to learn stock options and stock markets. Whatever it is, like you're making an investment right now. So don't ever let anybody make you think that you ain't investing just because you ain't got no money. Oh, believe me, if you learn to monetize, eventually the money will come. I promise you. I promise you. All right. So I'm done talking. I gotta go. I gotta take Tater to school. But by the way, so Prime class happens. Stock options class is on Friday. So if you'd like to join us, just go to drboyceprime.com. You can bring your whole family. And actually, Amani just put together a really nice affiliate program. So those of you that are in Prime actually have the ability to bring your relatives, bring somebody as kind of a guest. And then also, if someone else signs up and they use your link, then you can actually get a percentage. You can get a commission from that. That was something that she put together that I think will be helpful. So I'll let you guys know more about that. Second of all, Dr. Lene Javette is doing her conference in Miami in a few days. It starts, I think, around the 22nd or 24th, I think. It's Saturday. It's that next Saturday. So if you want to fly to Miami and hang out, I'll be there along with a lot of just brilliant and amazing black women that are really super smart. So if you go to blackpowerher.com, you can join. It's a more of a working conference. It's like if you want to sit down and really pull out your laptop and really work and get something created, then that's a great place to be. And also Miami's just nice. It's fun, and they're taking a cruise after and all that. So feel free to go to blackpowerher.com if you want to learn more about it. I think she has digital passes too for those that can't make it. All right. So have a good day, everybody. God bless you.